Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another Mark at the Mike Goes Rogue Show, the podcast that takes you outside the city limits of Burlingame, California. My guests today, Kristen Kelly and Serene Williams, are two high school educators from Sacred Heart Schools in Atherton, California. They are in the process of creating the first national course on women's history in the United States. Students across grades are robbed of education about the women who shaped America. Young women are robbed of role models and representation, which contributes to low efficacy for girls. Madison, Hamilton, Roosevelt remain household names. Yet what of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Ida Wells Barnett, Shirley Chisholm, and Alice Paul? A quote from the College Board. Providing high school students across the country with more opportunities to learn about the critical contributions and historical impact of women is inspiring. And the commitment shown by Kristen Kelly and Serene Williams and their team of students to raise support for the development of an AP course in the field of women's studies is exciting. And now my conversation with Kristen Kelly and Serene Williams. Kristen and Serene, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having us. It's such an honor.
Thank you, Mark.
Ladies, just a little bit of background about your teaching experience. How long you've been teaching it down at Sacred Heart? Did you do any prior teaching before, before Sacred Heart? And Kristen, I'll just start with you.
Well, I've been almost 19 years at Sacred Heart. It's my only adult job right out of graduate school. And it's been such an adventure.
Where was grad school?
Berkeley.
Great.
Yeah.
Go Bears.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's my first and only job.
Good
and I've
for
been
you.
there for a long time, and they've been very good to us. And
Yeah.
we're very, very grateful and honored to still be there on
Great.
this journey.
What are you teaching?
Right now I'm teaching AP World History, and I'm also teaching Modern World History to freshmen.
Great.
So I'm a world historian, and Serene's an Americanist.
I know you're both history buffs, which is great. So, Serene, what about you? How long have you been down at Sacred Heart?
So I've taught for 20 years at Sacred Heart at 3 different Sacred Heart schools.
Okay. Yeah.
And I taught for 4 years at Convent in San Francisco, Convent of the Sacred Heart, and 16 years in Atherton. And I taught at Sacred Heart's online school as well, called Sophie Connect.
Yeah. And you do a little bit of Wikipedia work or something?
Yes, I'm a Wikipedian. So I've taken several Wikipedia courses in how to edit, write Wikipedia pages. And right now I'm focused on a campaign to improve the coverage of the Equal Rights Amendment. There was not very much on the Equal Rights Amendment on Wikipedia. So I've been writing pages, adding images.
One of these days, you're going to write my Wikipedia page.
I would love to, Mark.
And we're
It'd be
going to
an honor.
embellish it a little bit, okay? Yeah. All right. So I have to know, you guys have been both teaching down at Sacred Heart Atherton for quite a while together. How did you two meet, and how did this whole inspiration for creating this project start?
You want me to do it?
Go ahead.
So I was teaching for 15 years in the religious studies department, and I was teaching women in religion, and Serene was teaching women in U.S. history. And we would have lunch together, and we would just gripe about how there's no textbooks or anything really written on a high school level, and we would have to take our graduate level readers and kind of distill them down. And then finally it came to, why don't we do an interdisciplinary course where I'll teach the women in the religious part. First we started out with world history for a year.
How far back does this go when you started this? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but how far back?
10 years, 12 years?
12.
Wow.
We presented
Okay.
at our first conference
Okay.
12 years ago. Yeah.
All right. And so you guys got together, you're having lunch, you're talking this thing over. You were kind of griping because there's not a lot about women in history. Is that what you're saying?
I'm gonna take that on.
Yeah, so I teach AP US Government, and there are 15 required court cases and 9 required documents that nationwide all students need to know. None of the documents are about women, and none of the court cases are about women. So I taught women's history for many years, came out of that, taught AP US Government, and was horrified at the lack of women. So after that, I came back to teaching women's history. Kristen and I have co-taught for a long time. And we're making a pitch to the College Board initially to put women into the AP US Government course.
Okay, great. All right, 2 questions. Sure. A lot of folks don't know what AP means. Mostly people from my generation, because we didn't have AP back then. We were just lucky to get placed. Okay, not need. AP is what? Advanced placement? Is it offered to all students?
Go ahead, Serene. You're the boss.
So AP are college level courses in high schools. They are very common now. So AP, many schools, including our school, are many of the courses are open enrollment. So any student can take them.
Okay, so it's not tied into a grade point average, is what you're saying.
It's not tied to a grade point average. Some courses like math, you have to prove math ability to get in. But we teach open enrollment AP.
Okay, good. And the College Board, you mentioned the College Board, and I actually quoted the College Board. Who is the College Board? Is there like these all educators on this board from throughout the U.S. or what? And where is it located?
So the College Board is a national organization. They run not just advanced placement courses, but also run the SAT. And a lot of the executives of the College Board are in New York. And each course has their own test development committee consisting of high school teachers and professors. If students earn a 3, 4, or a 5 out of a 5 scale on an AP exam, they pass out of college. So the professors play a major role in the development of the content and the development of the exam, making sure that students are qualified to go into a level 2 college course if they pass their AP.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, instead of it being an AP class, why wouldn't it just be a regular class that's offered?
Want me to handle that one? Sure. So we've tried that many durations. First, we tried, like I said, with the interdisciplinary teaching women in world history. The students thought it was too academically rigorous for not getting an AP bump to their GPA.
Okay.
So we want to teach a very academically serious class. And in order to get the students to take it academically seriously and do the level of work, they want the bump to their GPA and the rigor level on their transcript. And also in order to do that, we have to have what we call an external standard, meaning like if the kids are like, this is too much work, we can say, it's not our work, it's the College Board's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. All right. So creating a women in U.S. history class sounds like a lot of work on your own time, right?
Is.
Am I right with that?
That's right.
And there's lots of hoops to jump through.
Yes.
Why don't you sort of walk us through the journey, the birth of the class? What year did this project begin? And you had to sell the idea to the Sacred Heart Administration, didn't you? I mean, once you got the idea formulated and all that, so...
Well, to be honest, we have to give them credit. They've been funding us and sending us for 12 years. We never had to sell them anything. They
really?
have always been
they got behind
really
it.
supportive from the start. There's a lot of people we had to sell on it. Do you want me to start with the history on it? So for the last, I want to say 10 years, we've been presenting at national and international conferences on putting women into history. So for the National Women's Studies Association, for the American Historical Association, for the National Council of Social Studies, and there's been like numerous, did I miss one, Serene? Anyway, so we've been presenting at this. And then about 3 years ago, Harvard gave us a teacher's grant for the Schlesinger Library.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that on the website.
And they brought us to Harvard. And like Serene already said, the idea was to just like essentially put women into the already established classes. But then when we got there, the stories were so incredible that we're like, this is a standalone course. So we decided to come back and essentially create this campaign and Serene mostly wrote an entire CED, which is a course exam description, all on women in the United States.
Serene, when you were doing this, and not that this is robbing anybody of any time, but were you doing this after school, in between classes, at home, weekends? When were you all doing? When was all this being done?
Yeah, so both Kristen and I teach full-time.
Yeah.
And we're also mothers and wives, and
right.
we have very busy lives. So my children are older. My oldest is in college, and my younger one is a senior in high school. So I would do this in the evenings, most weekends. I did this for several years. Yeah. And I like to write. And when we got back from Harvard, we started a petition to create the course, started distributing the petition, and it got a lot of support. So when it got a lot of support and a lot of attention, I wanted to make sure we had really solid academic scholarship to back it up.
Okay. Let's talk about the Harvard thing for a moment, if you don't mind, right? I know you got the grant from Harvard along the way. What was the timeline on that? So you apply for a grant, right? You sit down and apply for a grant. I'm sure there's a lot of paperwork involved in something like that.
Serene wrote like a 30-page paper.
Yeah.
Serene.
And that's, yeah. So then you send it. Does it drop it in the mail? Do you email it? How does it get from, Atherton to Harvard back east? Do you hand deliver it? What goes on there?
So I visited the Schlesinger Library about 10 years ago, and I was trained as a political scientist, not as a historian. So I didn't really understand how archives work and what it is involved. So ever since I went physically to the Schlesinger, I thought someday I really want to apply to get funding here. So we had our eye on this teacher grant for a long time. And about 3 years ago, we finally had enough time to sit down together for a few lunches and write the application. So we had to get letters of recommendation. We had to get people that could vouch for our level of scholarship, that were able to work at the archives. We had to show a writing sample. And, it's been 25 years since I've been in school. So I wrote a pretty comprehensive paper. Yeah. I went through every single course and exam description book for all the AP history exams, and I counted the number of women. And so wrote a really comprehensive paper about the lack of women, extensive documentation. So we submitted that through their portal.
Okay.
And they have a website where you submit all the materials.
Okay, so you submitted it. And then what was the waiting period? Like months, weeks, days?
It was months, and we were the only ones that got it.
Really?
Right.
Yeah, we were the only teachers.
While you were waiting, did you have any indication that, hey, it might happen? Or were you like, is this going to happen? Do you know what I mean?
Well, we were very excited, and we had no indication of anything. And then when we got it, it was like tears.
Oh.
Right. It's a very big deal.
Yeah, we were very honored. Yes.
Have you applied for any other grants?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how are those going?
So I applied last year for the Cokie Roberts Women's History Award.
Oh, right.
Yeah, very prestigious Women's History Award, funded travel to the National Archives.
She was a very well-known journalist.
She was,
right?
and she went to Sacred Heart, and she was inspired by the RSCJ, the same nuns that we have been inspired by. So I was a finalist for that out of 60 applications. And I was in the top 5 and was not selected out of the top 3. So I'm going to keep on trying. I would really love someday to get the Cokie Roberts.
So is Harvard the only grant you've received so far?
We've only applied for Harvard and the Cokie Roberts.
Okay. All right. I'm wondering, Stanford's in your backyard. It's right next door to Atherton, right? Does Stanford not offer anything like this or what?
No.
No, Harvard has the archives. So the Schlesinger Library at Harvard is the largest, most important women's history archives in the United States.
Okay, so that's kind of the trigger. Mm-hmm. All right, okay. So why has it been so difficult in getting this project pushed through, and what are some of the challenges and what kind of pushback are you coming up against? I mean, you've been working on this project for 12 years, right?
That's a complicated thing because there's a lot of bureaucracy, but to be honest, and you can disagree with this, Serene, or not, there hasn't been. We thought we'd get more pushback. And I guess I'm going to talk about a little bit the politics. We thought we would get pushback in the South a lot, like AP African American Studies did. Uh-huh. And it has been nothing but support. Like we have teams of students and teachers and university professors in the South throughout Florida, Arkansas, Georgia, the Carolinas that are just all in on it. And it's been this pretty much beautifully enlightening experience about even in divided government, everybody gets behind this. So there is a lot of bureaucracy. Like right now we have to get 100 university letters of diverse schools from around the country, HBCUs, religious, affiliated, private, public. And then we have to get 250 letters of support from high schools. So it's a lot of advocacy work, right? We have teams of student interns helping with that. We have another podcaster in Australia who is making it her life's mission to get us these university letters. And it's been Allison Tyra is incredible. And then I have my Girl Scout troop in Pacifica, really just sending they're in 6th and 7th grade, and they will be able to take this if it launches in 5 years. So they're doing a ton of on the grounds, going to school boards, advocacy work for it.
Terrific.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's like a Hallmark movie. We like to be like, this is like a good old American feel-good journey. Yeah.
So we're talking on a national level here, right?
International, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's even better.
The IB programs in many countries.
Why wouldn't you just take baby steps and just start here in California and then go national once everybody bought in? I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, I can talk as a government teacher. So states control curriculum. So the states decide what is taught, and the federal government has very little control over what is taught. So the only way to get a national course is through the College Board or the IB program, the International Baccalaureate Program. Those are the only ways to have national curriculum. We didn't start in California because California has something called the FAIR Act that protects accurate teaching of LGBT history, disability studies. Many states have the opposite law of that. They ban the teaching of race and gender and things like that.
Right.
So we think it's important that the College Board takes a stand to say we support the teaching of hard history. Students have a right to access accurate information about history, and the College Board is the most effective vehicle for that.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. So if I came up with a class, you're telling me it's going to take that long to push a class through? It could take 10 or 12 years if I develop my own class?
And then you'll get rejected at the end.
And you get rejected at the end.
Like AP engineering, right? And yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just wondering, have you ever thought about proposing an AP Gender Studies course?
Yes, thank you for asking. We've thought extensively about this. So one, we think that history is a better vehicle for high school students. We don't want to get bogged down into debates over gender, what is a woman, things like that. And we have been receiving a lot more support for history It makes it a little complicated because in many states you have to be credentialed to specifically teach history in order to teach an AP history course. So we've been working directly with Trevor Packer, who's the director of curriculum for the College Board. He shared with us that it does make it more challenging to call it history, but we think it's really important that we call it history. We've attended conferences like the American Historical Society. We have seen people fighting over gender and sexuality issues and things like that. We don't want to get bogged down in fights over those topics, and we think history is the better vehicle for high school students.
Okay. Would boys take this class? Men take this class?
We get this all the time, and the boys, and we've had all these like alpha boys throughout the years, and it's like their favorite class.
Really?
Yeah, and it's funny, we bring them. Because that is asked every conference we present at. We're like, what is the boys' experience in this? And we always flip it like, I guess the same as the girls' experience in history class until now.
Yeah.
Right? The girls like studying men. It's fun history. Just like the boys love studying women. It's the stories sell themselves.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, actually, my wife told me that she thought she took a course that was similar to this when she was going to college, Women in History. And I thought, I don't know, Kathy, I thought maybe this was the only thing. So is this course offered in college? Can somebody take Women in History in college?
It is, yes. So there are many ways students, if they took an AP Women's History course, they could pass out of the Intro to Women's History class. They could also pass out to an American Studies course that focused on women, or anthropology that was centered on women. So we have gotten support from many different types of departments in colleges. We have to get 100 universities to send us a letter of support saying they would grant credit to high school students who took this course, and it doesn't have to be in the history department.
Okay, so let me make sure I got this clear. Let's say I'm at your school. I'm down at Sacred Heart. It's accredited now and everything's happening. I take the class. I pass the class. What gets waived in college? The same, the equivalent that class, or is it a different, any kind of history class?
It's different for every university.
It is.
Some like really elite universities, they expect you to take these high level classes, and you do get a GPA bump and a bump in what's called your rigor score on your transcript, but then they don't accept them. Other, public universities are like, absolutely, you can start in level 2 instead of level 1. Say you're a business major and you took this class, you then can, you don't have to fulfill a humanities prereq. So like it all depends on where these kids go to school, on whether or not they'll accept them. But now it's becoming, they expect you to take this level of scholarship in order to prove that you're ready for the university level.
Okay.
Can I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
So it's really becoming more common now for students in high school to take AP US History. And so if a student took AP US History, they would pass out to Intro to History at their college. And then if they also took AP Women's History, they could pass out of Intro to Gender Studies, for example.
All right.
So they'd come
now,
with
Serene,
2 courses.
You're making me think about something here. Okay, so you say AP US History. Well, what's the difference between AP US History and just taking history, right?
Yeah, great question. We tried to ask the College Board if they would accept AP Women's History for AP US History credit. So, for example, if a high school student says, I don't want to take regular US History, I want to take Women's History, AP Women's History, could that fulfill their history requirement? So a student has to take US History in high school.
Okay.
And the College Board said no, states would not allow that. So this course that we're proposing, they would take after they've taken a survey U.S. history course.
They would have to
Big
elect
picture.
into it, like it's an elective.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you guys have become real professionals at this, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
The bureaucracy. We have a PhD in bureaucracy.
You must have. It's amazing to me. All right. So let's say the course is finally nationally approved, right? You've hit the finish line and all that. How long would it take to get it implemented into the school curriculums?
We have a 5-year trajectory before essentially we have a national pilot course. But we do think, I don't know, do you think it's going to take 5 years to launch a test development committee?
I hope not, because we could pilot with 60 schools. So AP African American Studies. We've been
60 California schools?
No,
Nationwide.
nationwide.
It has to be a mixture of urban schools, suburban schools, private schools, public schools. It has to be a variety of schools.
But those teachers would have to be taught how to
That's right.
teach the
and
class.
one of the concerns we've heard is a lot of teachers love this idea, but they don't feel equipped to teach it.
Yeah.
So we've been working with organizations like Alice Paul Center for Gender Justice, National Women's History Museum, National Women's History Alliance. We want to get training for teachers so they feel confident to teach this.
And that's like, even in our generation, like a big reason why we launched into this is my argument is you don't actually learn history unless you see yourself in the story. right? So I learned about 5 women until I went to college, and I was a history undergrad, and then I took women's history. And how many people are history undergrads, right? So all these women that are going into business and medicine and all of that, they never learned their actual contribution to their country's history.
Yeah.
So a big part of this is we need to train the teachers, right? And Serene already has binders on how to do that.
Right. And we're going to get into the pilot program here in a minute. Actually, I think we'll get into it right now. So Serene, you're currently teaching a pilot program, right? That's right. And excuse me for these questions. These come under the dumb question heading of my podcast, but are boys and girls enrolled in these right now?
Yeah, that's right.
And is the class offered to freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors?
So Sacred Heart in Atherton has a long tradition of offering AP US History to 10th graders. So I'm
10th graders, that's sophomores?
Sophomores.
Okay.
So I'm teaching a course I'm calling Way Push. Our campaign is known as Way Push.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Which is Women's History and AP US History.
Her daughter came up with that.
Annabelle
coined the term. And so I'm teaching AP US History, calling it Way Push.
Yep.
So I'm preparing my students for everything they need for the AP US History exam. And then in class, we're just talking about women. And Kristen and I have a website where we're putting teacher-facing materials, information, curriculum guides, things like that. And I'm asking my students for feedback along the way as I teach it.
All right. Traditionally, and I'm going back to my days at Sarah when I took history, right? We had a history book. Okay. Do you have a textbook for the class?
Well, you do, and you have like binders because, go ahead.
Okay, so we do have so in order to teach an AP course, you have to have an AP approved textbook. So there is a textbook by Ellen Carroll Du Bois called Through Women's Eyes. So a women's history textbook commonly used in college. So that's our recommended book for the course. Uh-huh. In addition to that, we have supplemental readers.
Right. Okay. And those supplemental readers might be stories about different women that have made a mark in history or something?
Yeah, a
lot
of what's called primary sources, documents, speeches, poems, all kinds of things.
It's a lot of what we're going to call, and I'm going to throw this word down, intersectional feminist history, meaning a lot of women of color that still aren't in the textbooks, that the students really like, right? Because we're teaching the kids in front of us, so we want to know about the Filipino women, we want to know about the Pacific Islander women, we want to know about, right? All the different types of American women's experience and contributions.
Okay, we're going to get to that in my next question here. I mentioned in the intro 4 prominent women of U.S. history, right? Stanton, Wells, Chisholm, and Paul. When I researched your curriculum, and man, it's a mind blower. You had many notable, famous women listed. How did you go about, researching and selecting all these women? I mean, how do you divide and conquer all these ladies that have done so well?
So first of all, that's archives. When we got there, it was just like incredible story after incredible story after incredible story. And we've had an insane amount of mentors and scholars along the way. Our partner, Allison Tyra, runs the Infinite Women podcast and essentially database on women in world history. And she's got these incredible stories of so many, and she just helps us out.
This is the lady from Australia?
Yeah, well, she's from Indiana, but she's an expat. Her husband works in Australia. So she's an expat living over there. So she runs this amazing database of women in history, and she has all these connections. And then Serene has a ton of connections.
So I consider myself a working historian. I work at archives. I like presidential libraries, for example. I've been to the Nixon Library, the Ford Library, the Reagan Library. I'm particularly personally interested in the 1970s. So I started this to say, okay, I'm really interested in learning about women who fought for the Equal Rights Amendment in the 1970s and 80s. And so that was the entry point for me. And then I realized, this fight for the Equal Rights Amendment has been going on since 1923. So that led me to uncover a series of primary sources. Our curriculum really intentionally includes women who are lesser known, who contributed significantly to American history, but people have never heard their names. So you're not going to see women like Hillary Clinton that much, or Oprah. It's going to be lesser known stories. And
Pauli Murray.
Pauli Murray is a huge story. For example, Pauli Murray helped create the legal framework for Brown v. Board of Education, but Thurgood Marshall usually gets the credit. Or Pauli Murray helped create the legal framework for gender equality that Ruth Bader Ginsburg gets the credit for. So we really like to go back to the women who inspired the much more famous.
Right. So you're not going to have much on what you're saying, and we won't see much on Kamala Harris on this.
She actually will end our curriculum.
She will.
If she gets elected next week, that would be the end of our curriculum.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Good. In the big picture here, the big picture, right? How far are you guys from the finish line? And, what are some of the hurdles still left?
Sorry for that exhale.
That's okay. I get it.
That's okay. So, can you want me to do this?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you jump in. So we've done incredibly well with the 100 letters of support for the universities.
Can I stop for a minute?
Yeah.
You said 100 letters. Mm-hmm. Do you have a team of people helping you with these letters?
Allison Tyra is slaying it. She's in, Australia podcaster. She's just, going and collecting all of these. Also, we have students and my Girl Scouts.
And is it like one form letter that's going out?
Yes.
Or what?
We have a template
on our website.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So is that, I'm sorry, but is there like postage involved, or these email letters going out?
All email through Google
all
Docs
emails
and things like that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's on the university letterhead by the department head of history, anthropology, or gender studies.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
So we're doing excellent in that. Now, what's been trickier is getting the 250 high schools. So we literally just yesterday, and I like to share this, we just got the entire San Mateo district. So we just got Burlingame yesterday, which has been tricky.
Burlingame.
Yeah, so we have all the schools now in your entire school district. So it's been such an honor. We're so grateful for it.
Where's the next step then?
So it's interesting because the bureaucracy in the high schools have been difficult, and educators are overworked as well as administrators.
Right.
So it's been hard to really get a reply, to be honest with you. So we had teams of students all summer picking a state and just, we call it Operation Get in the Inbox, right? So they're just emailing, and they're literally doing educational advocacy via email with this template letter. And we've gotten how many out of 250?
About 20.
Yeah, about 20. So it's going slower.
Right.
But it's really only been since August.
A couple months, yeah.
So it's not that bad.
So I need an example of this, okay? The kids are emailing to administrators. Is that a principal?
Principal and
Or
superintendent.
Right. So I'm the principal at XYZ school in Nevada. And I see an email come from Atherton, California.
Right.
And I kind of look at it and I go, delete.
Right.
Right. Or it could would it go to spam or whatever they call it, junk?
Sometimes it does, but a lot of times there's just no reply.
When do you know, how often do you repeat? In other words, you tried XYZ school in Nevada, you're going to try it again if you don't get any kind of...
And that's what Allison Tyra is amazing at.
She's like, so circling back.
Right.
So we have to, so
Follows
we
up.
need more time to circle back, right?
Right.
So for instance, my Girl Scouts, they're working on their Silver Award out of Pacifica, and they're doing this work on doing that, and they're circling back big time. And that's how we've had to email the San Mateo district, how many times, Serene? Like a lot of times.
Yeah.
And in order to get the attention of the superintendent. And we just did, and it's been amazing. But everybody's busy, right? So it's really just a matter of it getting into the person that has the time to use the template and sign it. So
these are about 2 of the 10 required steps to pilot the course.
Yeah.
So 100 letters from universities, 250 letters from high schools. We have to help fundraise $5 to $10 million to pilot the course. We have to get support from inside.
What? Say that again?
Yes.
Yeah.
$5 to $10 million.
So not only are we not getting paid for this work,
I know that.
we're going to have a lot of cocktail parties in Atherton. This is where we're very grateful for Silicon Valley, because a lot of cocktail parties are coming.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, a lot of this seems like a majority of it's on your own time, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
it is on our own time.
It's an act of justice.
And it's a service for other people. My goal is, I hope Kristen's daughter, Faith, can take this course.
Right.
So she's in 6th grade now. I hope by the time she's in 11th grade, it's available to her.
Okay, so going back then again to my question, and I know this is probably not easy to answer. What are you hoping for the finish line? 5 years from now?
5 years.
5 years. Yeah. What if it's not? You're going to
Then we'll keep
continue. You're
going.
going to continue to this thing
Keep
you
going.
want, right? Till you get it done.
We're women. We never stop.
I love it.
It took 100 years for us to get the vote.
All right. How does one find out more about your project?
Thank you for asking. So we have a website called teachwaypush.org. And so we have all of the information there.
Teach Way Push. And the Way Push is just like you would WAY?
WAPUSH.
Okay, that's what. So WAPUSH.org.
That's right.
Great. And that lands you there. And then what are they going to see when they get there? Going to see the website, the work you guys have done. And is there going to be like a little donate button to hit or anything like that?
So at the top of the page, no, we don't accept fundraising. So we're not doing any
That's
collecting
from the College
money.
Board.
It's going to be through institutions, organizations.
Okay.
So that's the step after we get 100 letters from universities, 250 letters from high schools.
Right. Okay.
And I feel like most of that money, just so you know, is because whenever there's an AP course, there's a whole online test question that has to be coded and all that, so that the students can practice and like they can understand the skills and all that. So a lot of that is for like the tech behind the course.
Called AP Classroom.
Yeah. And the tech that it takes for them to learn how to do the multiple choice. So Trevor Packer, the head of curriculum, was very honest with that. He's like, that's not a concern. Like, pretty much the College Board will work that out.
Yeah. He's
just telling us like what it takes for the College Board to launch a course. So we're not concerning ourselves at all with the funding. He told us not to. We're just concerning ourselves mostly with the academic scholarship and
advocacy. Seems like that's you got your hands full with that right now.
We do.
Yeah. That's for sure. Okay. All right. Lastly, any shout outs to those folks that may have supported you along the way?
Pretty much everybody at Sacred Heart has supported us from the start. Like our Rich Dioli has paid for all of this, our head of schools. Diana Neby, our head of curriculum, has really helped us out going to all these conferences. And we have this amazing mentor for like years, Sue Beltramo, who has started our women's group, who taught me how to teach. We also have these
are all folks at Sacred Heart?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there are these nuns, because Sacred Heart is the only retirement home for the RCJ nuns west of the Mississippi. And these nuns just have been mentoring us all along the way. And so we're very grateful for all these nuns.
So the nuns are living at Sacred Heart?
Yeah.
Or
yes.
Really?
Yeah. So we go
that.
visit them at lunch, and our students go visit them, and they're just icons to us.
Yeah.
So we're very grateful.
Serene?
Yeah. So I'd like to give a shout out to Ben Hunter, who's an amazing AP history teacher at Sacred Heart. He's really helped me become a much better AP teacher. James Everett, our former principal, who was a wonderful support for us. He wrote a letter of recommendation for the Harvard grant, so we're very grateful to that. Our children have all been involved in this.
Our husbands.
Raising
our kids
while
we're away.
Yes,
our suffragents. Yes.
Terrific.
Our families, our families have come to all of our parents.
This has taken over our dining room table.
Yes, this has been like a legit grassroots, all hands on board. Like our families travel to watch us speak. Right. And like
this is terrific.
It's really motivating, and we're grateful.
So I think what we'll do, maybe, I don't know, maybe a year from now, maybe next summer, we'll get together again and just see where we are, right?
That would be great.
Maybe I'll do this little journey with you for the next 5 years.
That'd be an honor.
And we'll see how it goes, right?
And the Bay Area has been as epicenter of just support for us. So, and Burlingame especially, like we just got your high school yesterday. So we're very...
Terrific. Yeah. Kristen and Serene, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for your time.
You bet. I'd like to thank Kristen Kelly and Serene Williams for being my guests today on my Mark Goes Rogue podcast, the podcast that takes you beyond the city limits of Burlingame, California. Thanks to my podcast consultant, Mike Nagler. Original music by Bray. You can hear more of Bray at braymusic.com. This podcast was recorded at the Burlingame Public Library on Saturday, November 2nd, 2024. If you like what we've been doing, please give us a like, offer a comment, and please subscribe. And lastly, make sure to listen to my other podcast, Burlingame, It's a Small Town. Thanks, everyone.